Hey, calling all carnivores, ketovores, and people doing keto. I am not losing weight right now. I've been on the carnivore diet for over 125 days. And because I'm not losing weight, I'm in a stall, and I decided that I'm going to try to fix this and figure out what is going on and how I can start to resume losing weight. So I went on YouTube and I came across Dr. An Bosworth, or Dr. Boz. She is a doctor who has been studying keto and the keto diet. And I think that this will apply to us as carnivores. It'll also apply to us if we were vegans or following a vegetarian diet. So in this video, I'm going to take a deep dive into ketosis, primarily how to measure ketosis or whether you're in ketosis, but also study the blood glucose levels, and based on the findings that I found with Dr. Boz and what she talked about in several of her videos. In order to measure ketos, I'm going to be using, it's called KETO MOJO. You can't really see that, but it's KETO MOJO, and it is a glucose and ketone monitor. So I've been using it for the last 3 or 4 days, and I'm going to kind of walk us through what that looks like and how my measurements have been and what I plan on doing because of it. So without further ado, I'm Dave, and I have been following a carnivore diet in order to get healthy and lose weight for the Appalachian Trail. So if you're following me for Appalachian Trail preparation, I do those videos earlier in the week, Monday or Tuesday, and I'll get back to that for you. And then I put out a video on my carnivore diet at the end of the week. So thank you for following along. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate that. So as I said, I am going to be measuring my glucose and my ketones. So that's what I'm going to be measuring. Ketones, I'm going to kind of read a little bit of definition to kind of give us a little background. They only show up when burning fat for energy. Getting a handle on this will help me know if I'm eating the right way. And it's basically a point in time of your ketone level. So when I take my measurement using my blood as opposed to urine or breath, I'm getting a much clearer measurement of exactly what's happening in my bloodstream at that time. It also measures what's called beta hydroxybutyrate, which is a big fancy word for blood ketone. The other thing that I'm measuring is I'm measuring my blood sugars, and this will tell me if, one, I'm eating too much, because through gluconeogenesis, big word again for making new sugars, our bodies will produce some new sugars, and it can come from excessive proteins. And it can also come from stress or cortisol levels. It's known that your cortisol levels will increase at a certain point in the night, so you may wake up with increased blood sugars even if you've been fasting, especially from what I understand if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And that takes me to when you measure. And for my testing for the last 3 days, I've been measuring first thing in the morning, prior to eating lunch, then prior to eating dinner, and once or twice I did it right before I went to bed, just to see what my measurements were for the glucose and the ketones. That is what I found from a few different videos telling me like when the best time to measure your ketones. So let's kind of take a step back to understand the whole relationship of why measuring glucose, why measuring ketones is important, And this is based on a couple things. One is the GKI, which is the glucose ketone index, which is a well-known index that is, it's out there by all the major hospitals and all the major research groups have been measuring this for quite some time. Also, the Dr. Boz autophagy scale, and that is for people who are trying to kind of tighten up the loose skin, but also the ones who get a quick snippet of where your ketone levels are as compared to your glucose. So again, two different measurements. One is I'm going to start with the glucose reading, and this is for acceptable fasted range of blood glucose is between 70 and 100. That is known from the Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, Kaiser Permanente, which I think might be an insurance company, I'm not sure. And then the Mayo Clinic said less than 100 is an acceptable range of blood glucose. Ketone reading for somebody who is fat adapted, especially with somebody who's on the ketovore diet and are fat adapted, 1.0 or greater is a good number to have as far as ketones. It's acceptable that you are in ketosis anywhere from optimal ketosis or healthy ketosis, I think is what they said, from 0.5 and above. And I'm not a doctor. I'm just kind of basing this off of what I found on the internet. So if we look at it again from the nutritional ketosis, which is what I meant to say, 0.5 or greater is you're in ketosis nutritionally. 1.0 to 2.0 is moderate ketosis. 3.0 or greater is post-exercise ketosis, and 5.0 is fasting ketosis, or kind of roughly in that range, 4 to 6 or whatever. And the GKI, which is glucose ketone index, is a measure of metabolic health. It's the ratio of blood glucose divided by blood ketones. And there's a fancy formula. I think it's for all of us data geeks. It's blood glucose divided by 18. Take that number and then divide that by your ketones, and that gives you your GKI. The ideal for weight loss is between 3.0 and 9.0. So we're going to have to remember that when you see what my levels are. And then we have the Dr. Boz autophagy scale, which is glucose divided by ketones. The ratio under 80 is described as a weight loss ratio. Under 40 is definite autophagy. And under 20 is used for treating cancer or other life-threatening illnesses. Again, I don't know a lot about that, and I'm not really looking for it from that standpoint for me, but there are other people who are looking. So I'm going to put up on the screen, I think here, or over me, my numbers, and then I will talk to you about where I am, and you'll take a quick look at that. At the end of the video, I'm actually going to take my new numbers to see where I'm at. I've been, quote, fasting for about 3 to 4 hours. I haven't eaten. So that's not really a fast. It's just I haven't eaten dinner yet. So you are most likely looking at a screen right now of my last 3 days of using a glucose keto meter, which is the KETO MOJO GK Plus, and I will have a link in the description for that if anybody is interested in purchasing that, because I think for me it's a matter of trying to get data points so that you can see what's happening inside of you, especially if we're following a carnivore diet and we're not losing weight. So I think that's important. So if you look at my numbers, I started on the 13th. I did the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And I fasted anywhere from 0 hours to 3, 12, a couple more threes, 12 and a half. So I'm having coffee with cream in the morning, and this is kind of the first clue at why I might not be losing weight. And my numbers for glucose to ketones were 126 to 0.5. I don't know if you can see that very well. But then, so my glucose ketone index was 14, and my Bos autophagy ratio was 252. And those are in the I'm not losing weight phases. After a little while, I dropped my glucose ketone index to 7.22, which is in the, let's see, that's in the range of kind of a light ketosis. And then Dr. Bos her autophagy ratio was 130. And that kind of, I ranged from 250 to 130 to 326, 164, 120. And then I ended up, after the third day, after I slowed down what I was doing as far as in-between snacks, my last reading was a GKI of 5.8, which is, I believe, moderate. I'll have I'll put up another kind of graph to show where I am on the scale. And then the Bos autophagy ratio was 104.44. So as you can see, I really haven't been doing a job of staying in ketosis, even though I'm eating carnivore. I'm eating coffee with cream, which this is my understanding, that breaks a fast, but it doesn't raise your blood glucose. However, I'm waking up with a higher blood glucose level and lower ketones, which I believe Dr. Bos had stated that's kind of one of those signs of being pre-diabetic or diabetic. So where your cortisol level is shooting up and basically feeding me sugar early in the morning, and that kind of gets me going. So with that said, I will kind of set that aside for a moment, but my other numbers, I'm not fasting long enough, and my the numbers are not getting down into a ketosis state. So what does all this mean? If I have high sugar levels and low ketone levels, which is what I've kind of shown on my graph, that leads to, fair to poor GKI levels and fair to poor Dr. Bos autophagy scale levels. And therefore, I'm not in ketosis, I'm not burning my fat, and I've just kind of leveled off as far as my weight loss. So my thoughts: one, I have high cortisol level in the morning, and that is leading to less autophagy and lower scores. The coffee with the cream is definitely something I need to cut out, at least for a period of time, to see if my levels start to improve with that. And then the other thing is, I was kind of adding little snacks here and there. Maybe I was taking beef jerky to work and having that before lunch, or on the way home from work, I am getting another coffee, which is in between lunch and dinner. And then after dinner, and this isn't every day, but this is something that I'm starting to get, I'll call what I call the creeps, where I end up accepting something that I shouldn't be accepting, like a snack, something outside of my meal. So I'm going to start to make changes with that, and I will increase my fasting time. I'm going to start by doing some 16 or 18-hour fasts, and then I'll go up to a 1 meal a day and progress to an alternate day fasting for a little bit. And this is going to take me, the next few weeks, because I don't believe I should be just jumping into a fast, even though I've been eating, carnivore, right? So with that said, I'm going to now test my my ketone levels, and we'll get a first look at what's going on with my levels right now. So if you get the keto strips, those are for ketones, and the brown ones are for the blood glucose. You get the KETO MOJO GK Plus. I've already loaded up my, I'm actually loading up the thing. I loaded up the, whoop, and then I've taken out the lancet. Now I've loaded it up again, and I'm putting it in here. What you have to do is, depending on how thick or thin your skin is, you have to look at the number. I set mine at 3 because that is the level at which I will be able to penetrate my skin. So I have that. I will open up the packs to expose my strips. Try to do this quickly. Try to do it without getting too much of my fingers on the, well, and I'm kind of bunging this up. I don't know if that's a word. Bungling? Goofing it up. So we'll take our ketones first. And I have, well, I don't need to show you my blood. So I washed my hand earlier. Normally you would wash it pretty well. I'm going to use going to get the first drop of blood off. And then get my ketones are at 0.9. And I'll quickly move over to the blood glucose. I might have to prick my finger again. But you see my hand shake a little bit. And this is a sterile environment, in case you're wondering. And my blood glucose is 86, which is pretty good. So my blood glucose was 86, and my ketones were 0.9. So I put this into the formula that for the GKI and the Dr. Boz autophagy ratio. And my glucose ketone index is 5.31, so that's telling me that I'm in a light to moderate amount of ketosis. Dr. Boz autophagy ratio, however, says I'm at 95.56, so I'm not quite there with her level. However, I believe that I did hear something that under 100 is kind of our starting point. So that is the first time I've been under 100 on the autophagy ratio. You can pick up the KETO MOJO GK Plus. I really enjoyed using this. It's pretty simple. So best of luck with this. All you carnivores, ketovores, keto people, or anybody that are struggling to lose weight, I think that we need to use some of the data in order to get into ketosis and be able to continue to burn fat. So with that said, happy hiking, and don't forget to check out some of my other videos like this one.